Have you ever met a real-life superhero? Many years ago, I was walking through the car park of what would today be considered a very small airport. A young lady was walking towards me, dirty blonde hair and spectacles, just 20 years old. That day, actually, I later found out perhaps that was why her power was so strong. She caught my eye and smiled. Nothing unusual in and of itself. This used to be common in the world. But when she did it, a never-before-seen-by-me glint came from her eyes. Her eyes deserve a mention. Not green, not blue. The kind of eyes that change color depending on wardrobe or mood. Fire eyes. I stopped dead in my tracks. I may have actually been dead for a second, for my breathing stopped, and my heart held still in my chest, just for a very long second. Forgetting my plane, I asked her name. Great line, I know. I feel I must have stammered even getting that question out. For all that I could stand before a crowded stadium and preach with abandon. Her eyes had robbed me of that. Instantly, she had me sorted. She told me her name, and that her ride was not there as yet, so she was stretching her legs. And the power of her fire eyes, I imagine. Pretending to be gallant, I offered to escort her back to the terminal and chaperone her until the offending ride should arrive, totally forgetting my own plane and everything else except her fire eyes. She did not look surprised. She knew her power. It was many hours before her ride arrived. A washed-out dam had forced a considerable drive around. Even that detour was sketchy and getting worse. Her mother was worried when she arrived and found a slightly older man saddened by her appearance as her daughter held him in thrall. A queen with a court of one. Even more disconcerting when she heard I had let my plane leave without me so as to absorb as much of the fire as possible. Hearing I was a minister, she was slightly mollified. In those days, we were considered safer than we would be today. At any rate, she found it a reason for my chivalry that transcended the actuality of my enslavement. We both ended up taking rooms in a small hotel just outside the airport grounds. When I had seen them to their room, the girl's mother thanked me and said goodnight. I think her relieved to be done with me. The girl had a different plan, she told her mother. Nonsense. Mr. McBestis shall of course escort us to dinner. She turned to her mother. And I felt, rather than saw, those fire eyes turn green and cut her to the quick. Her mother's face fell for a millisecond. Then she brightened, hiding her disappointment. Yes, of course, how silly of me. We shall thank him for keeping you safe. I had no choice, no excuses, no desire to refuse when those eyes turned back to me once more. The fire blew now, but no less powerful, almost frightening. Of course I paid for dinner. Over the course of the next 2 days, as the flooding subsided, I spent my time with these two women, the young one in control of every movement of the three of us. I changed my call. I went back to the church in town that I had been at. I was enslaved. I could not leave without her sending me away. I would do anything for her. How long did the spell last? When did my sense return? I once asked her when it would wear off. She just laughed and smiled. Never was the unspoken answer. We have been married for decades, 5 wonderful children, and still the power of those fire eyes controls my life, and I praise heavens for it daily.